Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to do a little TBR breakdown for November, and I'm very excited because this isn't a typical TBR. This is a TBR for the Bloomin Readathon, which is hosted by Ali V on YouTube as well as Kirsty on YouTube. I will link both of them in the description below. So I found out about this readathon through Ali V. I've been following her for a while and I absolutely love her videos. So I found out that she was hosting a readathon and I was like, I absolutely have to participate, especially because of how adorable the theme of this readathon is. It's all stuff related to plants and flowers. It's the cutest readathon I have ever seen. So I'm so excited to participate in this readathon in November, and I have come up with a couple of books that check off all of the prompts on this little bingo card. So I decided to take the approach of reading a couple of books that I can fit all of the prompts into, because there's no way in hell that I'm reading, like 25 books? It's not gonna happen. So I have chosen 8 books, which I think I can handle. That's more than I have been reading, so it still is like a readathon goal. But I've chosen 8 books that fit all of the prompts that I should be able to finish in November. I'm also going on vacation in November, so I should be able to read some extra on vacation, hopefully. So I'm gonna walk you through the books that I've chosen for my TBR for the Bloomin Readathon and walk you through which prompts each one fits. And please leave any suggestions in the comments if you have like other books that fit the prompts, because I think it would be a huge help for anyone else who wants to participate. And please participate in this readathon if you want to or you can. It's gonna be so much fun and a really great community event, I think. So please head over and visit Ali and Kirsty on YouTube and on Instagram to make sure that you stay updated with everything that's happening with the Bloomin Readathon. So without further ado, let's get into my November TBR. Okay, so instead of going row by row, I'm going to walk you through the 8 books that I have picked, and then I'm going to tell you which prompts they fit into and what those prompts are. So hopefully this will give you a good idea of all of the prompts and what kind of books can fit into those prompts. So we're going to start off with the first book on my TBR, which is a book that I bought in hardcover like the day it came out, and I still have not read it, shame, but it is The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. So obviously I love John Green's book, The Fault in Our Stars. I'm not a huge fan of some of his other books, but I think his style of writing will be really well suited to nonfiction and this essay format, and I've heard that this book is absolutely incredible. Also, Ali actually loved this book. It was one of her new favorites. So I have to give this one a read. This is a signed edition. Again, I got it literally when it came out and have not read it. So this one fits into a few prompts. The first one is a bee, which is a book on your shelf that has a lot of buzz. So a popular book. Obviously, John Green in general gets a lot of buzz on Bookstagram and just the book community in general, but this book has gotten a huge amount of buzz recently, so that definitely fits that prompt. The next prompt that this fits is The Sun, which is a happy book, and from what I've heard, this is all the good vibes kind of in a book, so I think this fits the prompt pretty well. Honestly, this was one of the harder prompts for me to fulfill because I really don't read happy books very often, which is a little bit depressing, but that's just not my book taste most of the time. But I've heard this is a very happy, sweet, fun book, so I think that will work very well for that prompt. And the last prompt that this fits is the Ivy prompt, which is a book that is growing up the charts or is just really highly rated on like Goodreads or just highly rated in general. So on Goodreads, The Anthropocene Reviewed has a 4.49 out of 5 rating, average rating. So I think that fits the prompt pretty well. And out of anything on my TBR, I think this is what is highest rated on Goodreads right now. So The Anthropocene Reviewed is my first book on my November Bloomin Readathon TBR. Okay, moving on to the next book on my TBR. This is Blueitz by Maggie Nelson, which is a exploration. It's kind of also like an essay collection, but it's an exploration of the color blue from all these different perspectives and ideas, and it talks a lot about relationships, love, identity, grief, friendships. There's so much covered in this book, but it all comes back to the color blue and what Maggie Nelson associates with the color blue. So it's a fascinating read. I have already read it, which relates to one of the prompts. So one of the prompts that this relates to is root, which is going back to your roots or doing a reread. So I read this in college. I think it was actually last November, which is kind of funny, but I read it last year for college, loved this book. I annotated all throughout this book and absolutely loved it. So it fits the root prompt. It also fits the daffodil prompt, which is a book about friendship. Even though this isn't centered around friendship as its like #1 theme, there is a lot of discussion of friendship in this book between Maggie Nelson and a close friend of hers who had a pretty horrible accident and is now disabled. So there's a lot of discussion of that friendship and that relationship. And I think that technically does fit the prompt, even though it's not a central theme. It kind of is a central theme. I don't read a lot of books about friendship, so this is gonna have to fit the prompt. But this fits the daffodil prompt, and then it also fits the lotus prompt, which is a book that features disability or growing through adversity. So again, this relates pretty heavily to this friend that Maggie Nelson is talking about because it is kind of a big part of the book. So this fits the lotus prompt as well. This one also fits the fertilizer prompt, which is a book that will nourish your soul, because when I read it the first time, it really did nourish my soul. There was something about this book that hit me so hard, and there's a lot of discussion of relationships, and a lot of the things she says in here really hit home with me in terms of my past relationships and past struggles that I've had and personal things. So this really hit home for me, and I think it'll nourish my soul because it is so beautiful, so thought-provoking, and really personal to me. And finally, this is going to cover the Lily prompt, which is a book that covers grief or death. And there's just a lot of discussion of grief in this book, whether it be related to the friend that Maggie Nelson is talking about, whether it's grief over the end of a relationship or what has happened in a relationship. It's not so much death related, but there is a lot of grief in this book. So that covers that prompt. This one was a pretty heavy hitter. It covered quite a few prompts, but I think it'll be a really great reread and something that I'll probably end up reading or rereading pretty often because it is a book that I absolutely adore. So that is the second book on my Readathon TBR. Okay, next up I have kind of a funny one. This is The Collection by Nina Ledger. This is translated from French. And this is a book that I saw recommended on Books and Bao's book lists. So I've been writing book lists for Books and Bao. I will actually link a few of my articles down below, but they ended up writing an article about French books, I believe, and this was one of them. So this is basically about a woman who moves from room to room and undresses man after man, and she forgets everything about them except for their genitalia. It sounds really weird and kind of reminds me of boy parts a little bit, but like more honed in on a particular part. It's kind of funny, but it also sounds like a really interesting examination of female sexuality. So if Books and Bao recommends this, obviously I have to read it, and it sounds super, super interesting. So for this one, this covers Cacti, which is a non-needy read, which basically means that it's a short book or an anthology or a short story collection or anything just kind of short. So this book is pretty short. It's less than 200 pages, so that definitely fits that prompt. This also fits the Moon prompt, which is a book that takes place in a different country than you are from. So obviously this is a French novel, so that definitely fits the Moon prompt. This book also fulfills the variegated prompt, which is a rare book or a book that hasn't been rated much online. So on Goodreads, this book has barely any ratings. I've never seen it anywhere out in the world. The only place I've seen it is literally through Books and Bao. So I had to get this one online. You can't even find it in stores. So to me, that definitely fits the like rare book prompt. All right, next up we have a book that I am very excited about, and this is The Awakening by Kate Chopin. So I read a short story by this author for a short story class in college. Absolutely loved it. It was just such a great short story. I wanted to give this book a try, and I got it quite a while ago and just never ended up picking it up. So The Awakening was first published in 1899 and follows a woman named Edna who rejects the traditional concept of marriage and being a mother after she has experienced both those things. And it's about the ensuing relationship and self-discovery that she has after she abandons the marriage. So it sounds super, super interesting and right up my alley. And this covers a few prompts. The first one is a succulent, which is a book that makes you hot, angry, steamy, or otherwise. So I'm putting this in the succulent category because I think it's definitely gonna have some steaminess and definitely is going to be examining sexuality. It says there is erotic freedom discussed in this book, so I think that definitely fits the prompt. So that should be pretty interesting. This also covers the Earth prompt, which is a book that is published or takes place before 1990. So as I mentioned, it definitely takes place before 1990. So that's a check mark on the list. This also covers the Dandelion prompt, which is a book that I haven't been able to get off my TBR for a while. So this one's been on my TBR since at least March of 2020. So that definitely fits the Dandelion prompt, but that's all the prompts that The Awakening covers. I'm very, very excited to give this one a read. All right, moving right along, there is a free space on the bingo card, and I am interpreting that to mean that I'm gonna read an extra book. I'm gonna make myself read more for the free space, but it's only because there's a book that I wanted to read while I was on my trip in Florida in November. I'm going on vacation, so I told myself that I had to read this book on vacation. So I'm adding it to the bingo just to make myself feel like I'm achieving something. So I'm making it part of the readathon, even though I know the free space isn't meant to be like adding something into the TBR, but I'm just gonna go for it. And the book in question is Florida by Lauren Groff. So obviously to be thematic, I need to read Florida while I'm in Florida. Did I purchase this book specifically for that reason? It's possible. I'm not gonna say yes or no. Yeah, I purchased it just to read it in Florida. Anyway, so this is just a short story collection that all takes place in Florida. I've been recommended this book a couple of times for various reasons, especially because on all of those like astrology book recommendations, this has been the pick for Taurus like over and over. So I figured I should probably give this a read, and what better to read in Florida than a book called Florida. So this is going to be taking the free space. Next up, I have a book that I'm going to be listening to on audio, and that is Cultish by Amanda Montell. So this one takes up 2 spaces, and the first one is Tree, which is like Tree of Knowledge. It's a nonfiction book. So obviously Cultish is a nonfiction book about the science of cults, from small cults to big cults, things that are recognizable to things that are harder to recognize, everything in between. And it sounds fascinating, and this book has been getting a ton of hype. I guess it could also fit the B category because there's a lot of buzz around this book, but I think it'll be fascinating, and it is a nonfiction book. And the other prompt that this one fits is the Ladybug prompt, which is a book that looks cute but will ruin your life. So first of all, the cover is very cute, but the reason that I kind of put this as Ladybug is it relates to cults in general, like stuff like Lululemon or any of those like really girly, not really, but girly cults like that. A lot of women get drawn into, especially like mothers, stay-at-home mothers who want to make their own money, who see this opportunity for like entrepreneurial success and end up going for that. And it looks very cute and sweet and innocent until it literally ruins your life. So I'm taking it very literally that the subject matter in Cultish has that looks cute but will ruin your life idea. I puzzled over this prompt for quite a while and couldn't come up with anything else. So we're gonna go with that. So those are the 2 prompts that Cultish covers. I am so excited to read this one. Next up, I have a pretty heavy hitter in terms of how many prompts this covers, and the book is Felt in the Jaw by Kristen Arnett. So I have talked a couple of times about Arnett on this channel. I read Mostly Dead Things at my friend Marina's recommendation. Absolutely loved it. I just read With Teeth last month. I did really enjoy it. It was like a 4-star for me. But I wanted to give her short story collection a read because I think her writing style will work really well for this kind of form. And what I've heard is that this one is quite a bit darker than her other works. So I'm very excited about that. So this also takes place all in Florida, which of course, obviously I'm going to be bringing this book to Florida as well. So the first prompt this book covers is the spider prompt, which is like dark themes or horror or anything dark. So I've heard that this book has a lot of dark themes, and if you look on the back, there is a short story about a horrifying spider bite. So if that's not perfect for this prompt, I don't know what is. This also fits the prompt Water, which is a book from an author you've been thirsty to read more of. As I said, I've been really liking Kristen Arnett this past year, and I really want to read more of her work. So this is the only other published work of hers, I believe. So that definitely fits the Water prompt. This also fits into the Green Carnation prompt, which is a book with LGBTQ+ themes and or is written by someone in the community. So I don't know if the stories explicitly have LGBTQ+ themes. I know her other two books did, but I do know that Arnett is part of the community, and her kind of bio says Kristen Arnett is a queer fiction and essay writer. So it's definitely part of her identity, so I think it definitely fits into this category. And finally, this fits into the Tulip prompt, which is a book about love or a book you think you'll love. So I don't have any books about love, but I think I will really, really like this considering how much I liked her other work. To me, this fits the Tulip prompt, and you're not gonna get me to read a romance in November. It's not gonna happen. So we're gonna go with a book that I think I'll love. But those are all the prompts that are covered by Felt in the Jaw. And then finally, the last book on my November TBR is a book that I've been wanting to read anyway for a while, and that is Never Let Me Go by Kazu Ishiguro. So I read Clara and the Sun in June, I think. So after I read Clara and the Sun and fell in love with Ishiguro's writing style, I knew that I had to pick up Never Let Me Go because it sounded similarly dystopian and really interesting. So I picked this one up and haven't gotten to it yet, which is shameful, but I'm going to read it this month because it does really, really well fit in with some of the prompts. So the first prompt that this covers is the propagation prompt, which is an adaptation. So it can be a book that was made into a movie, a book that was made into any other form of media or inspired any other form of media. So this one is more direct. This book was made into a movie, which I didn't know about, which stars Carey Mulligan. After watching Promising Young Woman, I love Carey Mulligan. I know I'm late to the Carey Mulligan party, but I really want to watch this movie. It looked really, really great. So I'm going to read this and then watch the movie in November as part of the Readathon, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. This book also fits into the snail prompt, which is a slow burn. So from research that I've done online and just knowing Ishiguro's writing style, Clara and the Sun was the very, very slow burn, and it's very like slowly paced and character driven. And from my research, it seemed like Never Let Me Go is also that way. So I think that'll be a perfect slow burn for the snail prompt. And then finally, this fits into the last prompt, which was really hard to come up with, and it is the mole prompt, which is a book with a strong antagonist. So none of the books that I have here, to me, felt like there was like a villain character or anything like that. It's really hard for me to find books like that because most of the time the antagonist is also the protagonist. I read a lot of unlikable narrator books and a lot of really like psychological books, so sometimes it's hard to find that. But for Never Let Me Go, I've heard that the school in general is a very strong antagonist. So even though it's not a specific person or villain, there is a strong antagonist in the school and what happens at the school that the students are going to. So I don't know if it fits perfectly, but it fits well enough for me. And with that, all of the prompts are taken care of for the Bloomin' Readathon. So these books plus Cultish, which obviously I don't have a physical copy of, all of these are my TBR for November and for the Bloomin' Readathon. I am so excited to be a part of the Readathon and get to participate in it. I'm looking forward to the community aspects of the Readathon. I think it'll be a great time. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please, again, check out Allie and Kirsty, and if you want to be a part of the Readathon, please join me in doing the Readathon. I think it would be so much fun to talk to you all about the Readathon and how it's going. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.